the HarPodcast with Harpreet Pandir.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹਰ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਪੰਦੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।
Hanji, good evening, everybody. Because we're recording in the evening, you're joined by Harpreet and Jagraj. We're bringing you the HarPodcast again. I'm on after I guess 3-episode absence. Thanks for filling in, Jagraj. Tonight we're recording with the old producer, the co-founder of the HarPodcast. So let me just do a little backstory here. This young man came up with this idea. We were sitting in an establishment in April of 2021, and he said, Harp, let's do this podcast. I'm like, let's do it. I don't know anything about the tech side of it. He's like, don't worry, I'll take care of that. You just commit. I just need your commitment. And we stayed committed, and we had a good almost a year, and then we had a bit of a hiatus, and then we came back and we pumped it up, and we came back for about a month and a half, and then we went into hiatus again. Anyways, we'll get into that. Raja, welcome to your little baby.
Welcome. I know. Thank you so much. Feels good to be a guest on the HarPodcast. I never thought I would say that, but Jagraj, Gianu as well. Welcome to the show, man. And from what I've heard, since you guys have relaunched, it's sounding good, looking good on social media and everything. So keep going, guys.
Yeah, obviously, I can't replace you. You're one-on-one for the show. You came up with the idea, but I try my best to carry the legacy of yours on the podcast forward. So it's been fun doing it so far. Obviously, adding experience to the resume, but we're glad to have you here today.
Yeah, happy to be here and thank you guys for having me.
So, all jokes aside, you were busy. You had a lot of stuff happen to you. Let's just back up to since the start of the podcast and kind of the end of the podcast. I know the reasons why. Maybe there's more, but the floor is yours. What happened?
Yeah, just life, man. I think when we first started launching, I was still in a different job, and then later on, a few months, probably or about a year, as you mentioned, after we had launched the podcast, I had gotten into a new role, taking that up basically full time, and that's really where most of my hours went. And to be dedicated to a podcast with Harp yourself, it's long hours sometimes, editing, recording, and all that kind of stuff. So it was just tough to find time. But and then as you guys know, what happened with me this summer as well, just got married. So lots going on that kept me away from the show for a little bit.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
How was married life?
So far, so good. I'm trying to get her to watch a little bit more Canucks with me. She still doesn't understand that there's that many games on Sundays. But we're slowly getting there.
Are you talking about hockey or football? You said Sundays.
Sundays for football, because I'll be like, we'll be watching a game and then it'll end and she'll be like, okay, chalo kuch kariye, and I was like,
next game's
1 o'clock game already shuru hoyi hai.
नहीं हले तक गर्म होने हैं.
Exactly.
हले तो मैं तो जेडे परोठे बने वो तो मैं हले तो एक अद्धा ही छकिया मैं.
Yeah, so
पूरा दिन पे.
Exactly. And then but jokes aside, everything else is going so far so good. It's a transition, obviously, but enjoying it very much.
Well, that's awesome, and congratulations to you and Simran and to your entire family. It's weird, like this is season what for you with Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi?
It flies by, man. This is year 7 for me, and who would have thought, Harp, when we first started or when I first came on the show, who would have thought that I would even make it to 7? You know what I mean? Like, I was talking to you guys when I was a rookie, and you guys were talking about you're in year 4, year 5, and now me being on year 7 absolutely is mind-boggling to me. And just to see the show grow in those years has been tremendous as well.
Year 7. So this guy, the first time I meet him, Jagraj, we have a team meeting. So it would have been, this is season 10 for me. So it would have been the meeting for my 4th year, as well as Randeep's 4th year. Takdeer and Gopi, they're a year after us. So I guess you came with Bhupinder and Harnrayan are still there, and this guy is decked out in a full-on suit. And I just looked over. I was like, "Oh shit, competition aa gaya! Competition aa gaya! Munda fresh aaya BCIT to."
Yeah, you know what's funny? Like I remember actually being at BCIT that day, and just a backstory for when I got hired. Bhupinder Handal, like the legend, he's the one who hired me, right? And he said that just a simple line on email saying call me, and the email was his number, and I just called him, not knowing what the hell it was going to be about. And then he's like, okay, cool, this is the opportunity we have, and we'll let you know how it goes. Never heard back for a month. And then I'm at BCIT, and I get a random call, and I think we were shooting the BCIT Mag show, right? So I was already in a suit, probably reporting or whatever, and I get a call from Bhupinder or Nathan, and they were like, "Hey, meeting today, 6 o'clock. Can you make it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I remember just like ditching class as soon as it ended, and went there straight to West Second. Got to the meeting, and I was in my suit, and I remember Nathan asking me, he's like, "Are you shooting BCIT magazine?" And I'm not even sure if I was or wasn't, but I just told him, yeah, I was. And and then yeah, we got to the meeting, and then Randeep comes in, and he takes a shot at me. He's like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And you're thinking, why is this guy wearing a suit? And everybody else is, meanwhile decked out in just regular clothes. So I was a little bit out of my element. But you know what's funny about that? Actually, I walked in, obviously day one. I remember the first person other than Nathan I met was Amrit. Speaking to her for a little bit before everybody else comes in. Mantad also comes in. And Mantad, he's in year one as well. I had no idea. I thought he'd been on the show for like 5 years. So I'm talking to him like he was some veteran. I had no idea. But him and I are the same year, same draft class. He was the first rounder. I was the seventh rounder.
Reverting back to you just mentioned how Bhupinder hired you, saying call me, puts the number in the email. Funny thing is, that's exactly the way you hired me. So the legacy kind of walked forward, in a way, and that's just so cool to see. Wanted to talk a bit about your time at BCIT. So what inspired you to make up your mind that you wanted to pursue broadcasting?
I knew that I was going to go into journalism probably in elementary school. Hockey was my first love, my passion. And at that time, all I wanted to do was play in the National Hockey League. The only
Hockey
problem
or wrestling? Hockey or wrestling? Come on.
Hockey, both. But you know what? Both were my passions. You're right, Harp. But you know what? I knew I wanted to play in the NHL, and there's only one problem with that. I never actually played hockey. So I never skated, and I was never obviously put into the game. So my whole life growing up, I was thinking, okay, well, how do I actually be in and around the game? And so this just seemed like the best way to do it. I was always passionate about the game, but I was always passionate about news and storytelling and writing. I grew up in elementary and in high school, all the way up until BCIT and up until really hockey night, always writing. So I would always write about hockey, write about wrestling. And yeah, it was kind of, for me, I always knew that I wanted to go into broadcast journalism.
For 90%, for 90% of apne born here, that is a story. I wanted to play in the NHL, but ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੰਮੀ ਡੈਡੀ ਨੇ ਹਾਕੀ ਪਾਇਆ ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਕੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਆਇਆ, ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਕਰ ਚ ਪਾਤਾ।
ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੁਣ ball hockey ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਚੜ ਗਈ, right, in the Punjabi community. Like that's why.
Yeah, we didn't have that when I was a kid, but I guess it's a great alternative to soccer too, or ice hockey.
And it was, right, because we couldn't play ice hockey. So what was the next best thing? Well, either learn to skate or get into ball hockey.
That's exactly, I kind of relate to you in that sort of way, Kyung. I was about 5 or 6 years old when I first started watching hockey. I fell in love with the sport, but I was doing swimming then, I was doing soccer then. The one thing I never did was skating. So I wasn't able to go and pursue the career that I potentially wanted to have in the National Hockey League, if there ever was one for me. But just watching hockey over the years, covering hockey, then other sports, obviously, I made up my mind to pursue broadcast and journalism. Any favorite memories you have from BCIT?
Man, there's a lot of memories. Like if one had to stick out, it was probably being in my second year of BCIT, being able to interview Sidhu Moosewala and DJ Intense and a lot of the heavy hitters in the Punjabi music industry when we were recording our documentary. We made a documentary, myself and Ryan Lehal, who now works for Global News, and a couple of other guys. We made a documentary on just the evolution of Punjabi music. And we were lucky enough to get an interview with Sidhu. And and intense, and just Speed Gunacharya and guys that are just very well versed in the Punjabi music game. So we were able to tell that story, and we ended up winning the award that BCIT gives out for, or that class gives out for the documentary. I forgot what it was even called. Something.
Dildani Mada.
But the documentary we called it Dil Dari Mara. You're right. Yeah. I forgot what the award was called, but Dil Dari Mara, the evolution of Punjabi music. It's on YouTube now if you guys want to check it out.
If you don't know the word's name, just call it Dildani Mada.
Exactly.
That's the word's name. Anyways, great segue into Sidhu Moosewala, right? Raja, like you and I know we're Pakke fans from the get-go. We're not the bandwagon kind that jumped all in after, after he passes and whatnot. So take me to how you meet him and, what kind of guy was he?
Man, like incredibly humble. So nice. Like, just like any other Desi person that you might meet, like South Asians, Punjabi people are so welcoming, right? We're such a warm community. Everybody, whenever you see another Punjabi, maybe not in Surrey because there's so many of us, but let's say you go somewhere else where there isn't as many Punjabis, you see that Punjabi person and you right away have a connection with them. And with Sidhu, it was the same thing. I remember going to his music video shoots when we were doing this documentary, and he was like just standing there and talking to us like he's one of his own. He wasn't speaking to us like he was this mega superstar, and at that time he was, right? Everybody was listening to Sidhu Moosewala, and his songs were bumping in clubs in Mexico, right? And that's a quote that he gave us in that documentary. And it was a funny story though. When we started to speak with Sidhu Moosewala, I spoke with his manager first to try and actually get to talk to Sidhu. And we're at BCIT sitting there editing the documentary, or just coming up with the documentary, and we have asks out to a lot of different singers, and Sidhu Moosewala's guys get back to us and they're just like, hey, let's meet right now. We're at Kingsway across Metrotown. It's not too far from BCIT. Come down here. He gives us the address. We go, we pop up, put it into Google Maps or whatever, and it's like this alley right across Metrotown. And I'm like, this kind of looks a little sketchy, right? Like it's an alley, and I don't even know what it was, but turned out to be a tattoo parlor. And we're sitting in the car. It's dark, it's rainy, and he hops out of the tattoo parlor, goes into the back seat of the car, and it's him and like his posse, a couple of other guys, and he's like to me, hop in. So me and Ryan, we hop into the back seat of the car. It's me, Ryan, Sidhu, a couple of other guys in the front seat. And then he's like, all right, bolo. And we have to start then, immediately pitching our documentary to him so we can interview him. And we're just like, hey, like this is what we're looking to do. These are the people that we've already spoken to. This is who we're going to speak to. We would love to tell your story. I understand, obviously, that there's a little bit of hostility currently in the climate with Punjabi music, and that was a time when people were talking about how this kind of music can influence kids to go into gangs. So that was kind of the angle that we took. But we obviously got clips and interviews from people that were really in the industry and told their story, and I thought it turned out pretty well. And speaking to Sidhu after, never got a chance to actually speak to him and get his opinion, but they used it after in their promotional kind of bits and stuff like that. So I'm glad that we were able to do that, and it was kind of a funny story meeting behind Metrotown, and being able to sort of interview him in that car. I never thought that's how I would meet Sidhu Moosewala.
Well, do you remember the video that they were shooting? Was it Issajat?
No, it wasn't Issajat. It was after that. It was Dark Love.
Dark Love. Yeah.
Dark
okay.
Love. Yeah. And it was snowing outside. So yeah, in one of the scenes in the music video, there's like a guy on his knees, and Moosewala just shoots him. And like I remember, like I probably have a video of that on my phone as well. And so it's pretty crazy. And actually it's in the documentary as well. So it's pretty crazy, like to see how the music video is shot behind the scenes to what it ends up being the final product. And the video itself is great. The song itself is also amazing.
Was that 2017 the end or 2018?
It must have been 2018, I think.
Okay.
Near the end of 2017. I don't know if the calendar had flipped yet, but yeah, December, January-ish, 2017, 2018.
Okay, that makes sense because it chadya sega 17th, right?
Yeah.
G-Wagon comes out.
G-Wagon had come out
August 2017. I still remember whose reception it was around. and then he's already blown up by
So High had, come out
December.
not too long before, so he was on his way to stardom at that point, and he was not the peak because obviously he went on to do greater things, but at that point he wasn't missing on any songs that he was creating.
He's definitely, a legend like Jamkila, like Tupac. Is just like, that name's it's gonna bang forever. I have no doubt.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹਰ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਪੰਦੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।
Raja, you also did work with Sportsnet 650. You were producing there, and you were also hosting a show, filling in and doing updates and all that stuff. Take me to that experience.
Yeah, it was great. BCIT again, that they're gonna come up a lot, right, in my sort of career so far in media. But I remember being an intern at 650. It was probably about 7-8 months after they launched. I think they had launched in September 2017, and in April or May of 2018, I was an intern, and I remember my first official shift was on the day of BCIT graduation. So I walked the stage, right, got my diploma, and then got into my car and went straight to the studio, still in my suit and everything. And then, yeah, and that was my first official shift. I had been there obviously for a couple of weeks prior to that doing interning, but yeah, my time at 650 was great. I loved it. Getting an opportunity to speak with players and executives and media members that you never thought you would ever be able to speak with, or people that you look up to, people that you still see on TV. Met a lot of people that I can now call friends, obviously, in that industry. And so I was very happy about my time there. Started off as really just a board operator.
No, he started off with a chadu. The chadu the crew. Do tenu board nahi dena pehla? Pehla cleaning karni hai te.
Exactly. I know.
खाना गर्म करके लियाना पैना. फिर tenu initiate करेंगे चंगी तरह.
A lot of interns I know have to go on to coffee duty. I was lucky at 650 I wasn't one of them, although I did have to do that some of the other places I interned at. But at 650, it really helped me actually being at Hockey Night Punjabi. I was at Hockey Night Punjabi prior to going to 650, and I kind of had not earned a reputation of being somebody that I can trust, but like they had know that if I'm working with Hockey Night, if I'm working already within the industry, and for a National Hockey League broadcast, then opinions, for example, that I was giving actually had a little bit of weight to them. I wasn't just a random guy, trying to tell people what to do, which I never would do, but I was there to obviously just soak into the moment and just learn from all these guys. And so it was fun. The first few months, again, being a board operator and then transitioning to doing sportscasts on News 1130, then on 650, and then eventually hosting my own show.
So when was that moment for you? Was it when you're at the reception party and your cousin's buddy goes, hey, yo, hey, come over here, check this out. You know what this is? It's Raja, man. Hockey Night Punjabi.
The funny thing is, I'm sure Jagraj can even probably still gets that. Like year one, as soon as people realize that you're on the show, you kind of get that moment. It doesn't matter whether you're on air or not, right? Like year one, people are like, hey, this guy works for those Hockey Night Punjabi guys. And so the name, the show of the show carries a lot of weight. And I'm proud of obviously to work on it, and everyone who's on the show has past and present do such a great job of really representing our community, but also putting on a quality hockey broadcast. Everyone on the show deeply cares about presenting the show in a strong light, and also showcasing to the hockey world that we're not just Punjabi people that happen to be hockey fans. We're experts in the hockey industry that are just happen to speak Punjabi.
Well put, Raja.
So, Raja, obviously, while you were at broadcasting school, the first few years, you obviously had the mindset that, okay, I wanted to do sports, but you did end up working with City News. So did you also have that moment of realization that, okay, news isn't so bad? Like, this is something that I could have fun doing as well?
I always liked news. Growing up, obviously, I watched a lot of news, OMNI News Punjabi, that I'm currently working for now as an associate producer. I always watched that growing up. Dilbert Gang was on my TV every day, and now his seat is the one that's across from mine. So, yeah, I was always into the news, and even when I was at BCIT, I made sure to intern in news rooms as well. I interned at Global. And they gave me an opportunity because they knew I was a sports guy, and because of also like working with Hockey Night. Like, they told me, hey, go and work with our sports guys. But I was also able to really learn from the experienced journalists that were in the newsroom at Global, really, of how to tell a story. So, yeah, sports and hockey was my passion, and that's where I wanted to go into when I went to BCIT. But I was never opposed to going into news. I was always willing to pay my dues and do whatever it took to get to the top of media, so to speak. But when it came to city news, it was just kind of more about timing. About my where I was in my career at that time. It never really crossed over too much with 650 because as soon as I got hired at City, um, the door was still open at 650, and I had picked up a couple of shifts at 650 for hosting and for working Vancouver Giants games and stuff like that. But when you're full time in the news grind, it kind of becomes tough, right? So once I did come over to City News, then that kind of was the end of my time at Sportsnet, and I started to focus completely on news. And then being in West Second, the building that we operate out of right now, on a full-time basis, I was also kind of able to pick up different things that or like find out about different opportunities, I should say, about what else was available within the industry. And that's kind of how I landed at to where I am right now.
You started with Tejpal's position as the assistant producer, and you ultimately made your way to being the producer of Hockey Night Punjabi. You've told us this story before of how that came to be, but what was it like for you personally, just getting to be the producer of the show that perhaps you grew up watching?
Yeah, I mean, being the producer of Hockey Night Punjabi is obviously a tremendous honor. I don't take it lightly. It's something that I obviously am very proud of, something that I hold very dear to my heart. But none of that would be possible without Nathan, the previous producer of the show, who really put the stamp on what this show is, put the stamp on quality, not only on Hockey Night Punjabi, but also within the entire building at West Second. Like, Nathan was the heartbeat of that building. He knew everything in and outside of that building, how everything operates, and he really went out of his way to teach me how to be a producer, not only editorially, not only how to run a rundown, but how these feeds and all the technical parts of it, how they actually work, and how you can use them to your benefit, and how you can actually use certain things and use certain tools to get a better broadcast, or think about things in a way that I might have not thought about before. And so if it wasn't for Nathan giving me the opportunity back in 2017, him and Bapinder back in 2017, to get on the show, but then obviously helped me thrive in being a top producer and really learn all the ropes of the industry, I wouldn't be here where I am. So yeah, Nathan, and I'm not the only person that says that, right? You can ask anybody within that building, whether they work on Hockey Night or not, whether they work in news or whether they work at City News, wherever it might be. Nathan's footprints are all over that. So his fingerprints, I should say, are all over that building, and what he was able to build within that newsroom speaks volumes. And I wouldn't be here without him.
You were at the Heritage Classic last week, obviously, with Takdir, one of the analysts on our show. You've had many opportunities throughout so far, just in the short time that you've been producer, or like the 5-6 years that you've been with Hockey Night Punjabi, to experience many different things. Last year during the trade deadline, you did such a great job with Indeed providing coverage for us from Rogers Arena. What's been your favorite memory just working in the sports industry?
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah, the Heritage Classic was great. Favorite, I would probably say the draft, right? Covering the draft in Vancouver was awesome. Being in the arena with the guys, all the rookies, and interviewing them as soon as they got picked. Being on the production side of things. I was at Rogers Arena for both days, but I was also working at the station as well at the same time. So really just getting an understanding of how all of that works. But then the whole time around the draft, you're also hanging out with your colleagues, right? You're with all the sports, the entire hockey world comes to one spot during the draft, right? Everybody's in one building, everybody's going out to the same spots to have a drink or whatever else after. And so being there was incredible, right? Getting a chance to conversate with some people and really get different perspectives on how people think about the industry, how people think about the sport, what people think about the draft itself. And I remember there was a lot of people at that draft that was their first draft, covering it. And I was lucky enough to be on the draft floor, and, just walking around and interviewing Dale Talon and Steve Yzerman and all these legends in the hockey game that, again, it's, they just seem larger than life when they're in front of you right there. But again, you're kind of have that opportunity to speak with them. And that was the draft of the Canucks with the JT Miller trade. So it was it was pretty, a lot of people were excited about that in that building, and just hearing about it and seeing it happen in person was incredible.
I remember where I was during that trade. Sorry.
Sure.
I was sitting right beside the Province senior writer Ben Kuzma, and I don't have this problem, like not so much anymore shaking my leg, but I was shaking my leg, and he kept saying, "Can you stop shaking your leg?" You guys trying to do his work, and here this DC kid is like just shaking his leg. And then when the trade was announced, and
They started shaking it even more.
Yeah. When the trade was announced, he was like, "That's a great trade." I remember him right away. Like most people, social media messaging amongst colleagues and peers, they're like, "Oh, they gave away too much. They gave away too much. Oh, that's too much." But Kuzma at that time, at that very minute, was sold that it was a great trade.
And 5
Shout out to
seasons
Ben
later,
Kuzma.
JT Miller is still, one of the top Canucks on this team.
Yeah, and as we're recording here on a Thursday night, your favorite team when you grew up, Raja, because now you're an objectionable media member, is up 5-0 against the Sharks. And it's kind of sad to see that the half the seats are empty. So Jagraj mentioned the Heritage Classic game. So I'm assuming that's your first or second outdoor game, unless you went to the BC Place. What did you like about it? What would you change about it?
Yeah, so definitely my first game. And did not go to the BC Place one here in Vancouver, the indoor-outdoor game. But it was fun, honestly. Like, I think the NHL, and speaking about this from the draft as well, like the NHL does such a great job of hosting these events. As a member of the media, being a media member and accredited reporter at these events, they do such a great job of taking care of us. There's all these other events after, there's all the events prior, for the fans, for everybody to just kind of get together. So from an events perspective, the National Hockey League does a great job of putting on these outings for the fans and also for us as members of the media. But the game itself, I enjoyed it. Like it was cold. It was probably about 2 degrees. It was cold. I felt like it got colder as the game went on. But one thing that is a little bit tough when you're at those games is probably the view. You're better off sitting higher up because if you're sitting a little bit lower, because of how far you are, the bottom part of the boards kind of obstruct your view, especially if the puck goes into the corner. You may not necessarily be able to see who's digging for it or whatever. And, being at a hockey game, you're just not used to being that far away, right? When you're at a football game that's in that stadium, that's meant to be played in that stadium, the players take up the entire stadium for the most part, right? The field is meant to be on that size. The rink is not meant to be. And so you're a little bit further away. But, all in all, everything is still good. You're still able to, once you kind of get adjusted and once you kind of get used to it, you're still able to see. But that was the one takeaway that I thought. I was like, okay, some people might have a hard time seeing here, but other than that, the experience and the grind of being in the actual game was great.
So Raja's also done some color commentating with the Abbotsford Canucks. We did that a few seasons ago. So Raja, I just want to ask you this: do you know that Jagraj calls like 30 games in a weekend? How many games are you doing, Jagraj? Like, you just tell me the number again. Like, I can't comprehend how much you're doing.
Well, yeah, I started off in a league called the Junior Prospects Hockey League last year. It's a Junior B League, and they do things in a showcase format. So, ek game, and I'm not calling like a single team. I'm calling like the whole league. So, I can tell you, there was this one weekend last weekend, Friday to Monday, I called 4 games each day, 16 games in a total of 4 days. This upcoming January, I'm calling 20 games in 4 days.
Wow.
All by yourself.
all by myself, no color commentary.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a tough gig, man. Especially when you got to get that jaw. You got to get like some jaw and some like lemon water or something like that to keep your throat hydrated. I remember doing that same thing, like not as many, definitely not that many games, but those rinks sometimes, like being in Port Moody or North Van. I remember being in a North Van rink. I forgot what the name was. And you're doing play by play there, and you're freezing, and all the parents are also cold. They're right next to you, and it would be $2 for the heater, and so all the parents one by one would go up and put a tune in the heater every half an hour, and by the time at one point it was my turn, I guess, and they looked at me and I was on the air and I was like, I'm not doing it. And then the other mom goes and puts another toonie in and we were freezing our ass off. It was so cold in there. But that's how a lot of those junior rinks are. People don't really necessarily realize the grind of making your way up and paying your dues in this industry. So good for you, Jagraj.
I think besides just the throat and whatever, it's got to be tough to sustain energy for that long. But all being said, it's got to be a heck of an experience, right? Like if you can do that, one game, or if you get to Hockey Night in Punjabi and you're doing 2 games, it's going to be a breeze.
I know. I was actually listening to you guys' episode with Mantad a couple of years back, and he was telling me that he did one game that went 6 over, or it had 6 periods, so it was like at the 3rd overtime, and he was like completely dead by that point. And I was kind of the similar. I have a story back a couple years back, or a couple weeks back, sorry, should I say. I was calling a game and it was like my 4th game of the day. So I was like pretty died out. I was calling this game in Langley, and this game was in overtime, and Mantad told me the same thing. He said, "Ekadam mein jadon goal ho gaya, you get that burst of adrenaline, that burst of energy, and you begin like screaming your lungs out," for example. So it does get tough, but ਜਦੋਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ moment ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ or like some play happens like that, ekdam mein you get the energy to have a good call to end the game.
And Harp, I remember that episode with Mantad. I remember playing it live for him. His call, you remember that? Remember
Tyrell
playing
Buckley?
playing it back for him live, and
I'll never forget the guy's name.
to it.
I'll never forget the guy's name.
It was a great call, but coming, like, seeing how far Manthan has come is also amazing. He's done such a great job. But that was funny. He went wild for that call, and one of the all-time probably greatest calls in BCHL, man. I must say. I'm putting it out there.
So this weekend, we got plans to go to a BCHL game, which is with the Surrey Eagles, and I hear they're 12-0, and they got Jenny Nata, Inderpal, Mogat dropping the puck, Satkaryog Brenda Locke. They have lawyer turned realtor in Steve Cooner, and there's another gal in there. She's on the poster, and we'll be there too. But we're not the big celebs.
We never made the poster.
We didn't make the poster, but we'll be out there supporting. And the cool part about this game is, the Broad family's done a great job in engaging with the community, getting everybody out, and putting this Eagles on the map. And those kids, they show up to events and stuff, and so they're involved in the community, which is great. And they have 5 UpNet kids in that lineup, which is great.
Yeah, I've got an opportunity to talk to Ron Brar, the owner of the Surrey Eagles, a few times, and even interview him. And he deeply cares about really making sure that Surrey Eagles team does well within the community. The Surrey Eagles have been in Surrey for a long time, but I feel like people that live here in Surrey, especially people that are Punjabi, that love hockey, haven't really associated themselves with the Eagles. And now that we have Punjabi ownership, now that they're bringing people like Janni and Inderpal, and people that the people that are from Surrey, the youth, listen to and watch on a daily basis, if they're coming to these events, then I think the people within the community will also start coming in and really perhaps show a little bit more of an interest with the Surrey Eagles, because having 5 Punjabi hockey players on one team and being a team that is owned by Punjabis is not a small feat. It's a big deal.
Obviously, with let's transition sports now. Let's head over to your other passion of wrestling. Obviously, our original producer of Hockey Night, Nathan, was a big wrestler, is a big wrestling fan still to this day. And you, myself, and our assistant producer, Tejpal Garcha, are all big wrestling fans as well. We talked about it a bit throughout my first few weeks at Hockey Night as well. Just tell me where your love of wrestling began.
Yeah, same thing, right? Watching as a kid, my brother would always have it on, and then I started to watch it after that, and yeah, just always kept watching wrestling. Was always interested in the storytelling aspect of it. Basically the stories is what really I kept watching for, and then the wrestling I feel over the years has gotten better and better. But yeah, a lot of people kind of started stop watching it, but for me, it's just kind of been something that I've always enjoyed, and it started off when we were younger and watching guys like The Rock and John Cena, and I grew up in a little bit of a different era than Harp did, but everybody on our show is a wrestling fan or was a wrestling fan at some point in their life, so it's pretty interesting how much our show really is involved with wrestling. But I think that also speaks for Punjabis and South Asian people in general. A lot of people grew up and became wrestling fans because their dad or their brother or their uncle or somebody else would watch it. And in that era, when Harp would watch, or when I was a kid, the product was very strong.
5 tareek nu 5th January, Friday Night SmackDown is coming to Rogers Arena here in Vancouver. I think we might have to take a little bit of a field trip. Our whole crew heads up to catch some wrestling.
But before that, I have to give a quick announcement. November 11 ठीक 7:30 ਵਜੇ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੇ ਮੈਰੀਟਾਈਮ ਲੇਬਰ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵਿਖੇ ਹੋਣ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ All Star Wrestling Body Slam for Toys, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਬਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਬॉयਜ਼। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਗ੍ਰਿਲਾ ਸੂਜ ਅਤੇ ਕੋਕੋ ਫਲੈਸ਼ 69 ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫੈਲਨ ਕਿਕਿਓ ਅਤੇ ਅਮੀਰੀਆ ਰੈਸਲਰ ਡੈਨੀ ਰੀਡਸ ਵਰਸਸ ਬੈਟਲ ਵਾਸਪ 2002। ਬਾਕੀ ਮਾਈਟੀ ਲੋਕੋਮੋਮ ਸੈਬ ਵੋਲਫ ਪ੍ਰੋ ਡ੍ਰੌਪ ਕਿਕ ਮਰਫੀ ਟੌਡ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਟੌਨੀ ਬਰਨੀ 13 ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਟਵਿੱਟਰ ਨੇ ਅਜ਼ੀਮ TD ਮੰਨਿਆ ਪਰਮੰਨਿਆ ਅਜ਼ੀਮ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡਾ ਭਰਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਗੱਭਰੂ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਜਲੰਧਰ ਤੋਂ the Thunder from Jalandhar. So yeah, we can check it out after our broadcast, but shout out to Thunder.
I tell Thunder, I tell him often. He always says, "Come support." And I've been to dozens of All-Star Wrestling shows and ECCW and all those. But ਜਿਹੜੇ All-Star Wrestling ਵਾਲੇ show ਆ ਉਹ Saturday ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਯਾਰ।
I told him, I go, don't do Saturdays, do Fridays.
I know, Saturday, Sunday ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਿਆ ਕਰਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਟੀਮ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਗੇ, ਪਰ yes, Saturday ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, but you know what, they're fun to go to. I enjoy doing it. And Harp, you and I also on this very show, the Harp podcast, interviewed Thunder from Jalandhar, and his story is amazing, and what he does for wrestling in Surrey is also great. Not only Surrey, I should say, but all of the Lower Mainland and British Columbia. He is now the owner, or one of the owners of All-Star Wrestling. So good for him.
Yeah, we got some stuff in the works, and hopefully it pans out this summer. It's got to be during the NHL off season. So yeah, no, that's awesome. He's a great guy, and it was awesome to see him on the weekend too. He had to drop that jersey for you guys.
Speaking of the Bollywood boys, just wanted to send a congratulations to Gurv, whose wife recently gave birth to their second child. So big congratulations to them. They're also big Canucks fans. And speaking of the Canucks, our whole crew, or most of our crew, will be at the November 15th Diwali night, where the Canucks are going to be taking on Bo Horvat and the New York Islanders. You know what a welcome that should be, but we just gotta compliment that jersey that just came out today. What a beautiful design.
Yeah, you know what, the Punjabi Diwali night jerseys always every single year are such a great design, and this year, even though there is not going to be these aren't going to be worn on the ice for warm-up, it still does just if you look at the jersey, such an amazing job what they have done at those jerseys. And so it's good to see. It's good to see the NHL, or it's good to see the Canucks at least still come out with these jerseys, even though the players won't be wearing them. But they're absolutely beautiful.
I agree. It's a very nice one. So Jesse did a great job, and we're actually gonna try to get him for the future podcast episode. But I am curious just to see how that logo would have looked with black. Just curious, but it does look good in blue too.
I also do have a question for you, Raja. This is more so for the Hockey Night Punjabi side of things. Like with you heading into, I believe this is your second season as the producer of the show. What are 3 goals that you have for Hockey Night Punjabi as producer?
Well, yeah, coming up with, you know, the goals, I guess, for the show are, Randeep and I and me personally, like we speak about these on a daily basis, right? And number one, it's probably for us to really continue showcasing our brand, what we are, the Punjabi culture, showcasing that and advancing that further. Because yeah, as much as we've been on the show for on the air for about I think we're in year 16 now. There's a lot of people that still don't necessarily know, right? And so to really get word out there of who we are, what we do, and what we're all about, not only us on the show as people that are hockey fans, but also showcasing the Punjabi community more. And on top of that, for me as producer, really just to showcase a little bit of a different product. We are Sportsnet. We're, connected to Sportsnet, and we're connected to Hockey Night in Canada, the English side as well. And we're extremely proud of the partnership that we have with Rogers and with Sportsnet and working together with them. But being South Asian and being Punjabi, our culture is different. Our culture is vibrant. Our culture is colorful and flamboyant and loud and artistic. And we want to obviously demonstrate that to everybody else. So whenever, we have an opportunity to do those kinds of things, I like to do it. And for me, in terms of a goal, it's really just to, showcase that more to people, whether it's on the actual broadcast side of things on television, but also on the editorial, on the digital and the web side of things. And that's really is to make sure that we get all of our content out there in terms of showcasing the people that are on our show, but also the community as well.
What are 5 words in Punjabi that you use on a regular basis that you wouldn't be able to use on the air? I'm joking.
That's a trick question. But listen, if there was ever a uncensored Punjabi hockey show, I think that would do numbers.
Well, Punjab, like we already reach Punjab as is, but our reach in Punjab would be crazy if we were uncensored.
Yeah, I get that sometimes. Like, how do you not drop the act? I'm just like, how do you do that? Like it's like this when you're with your buddies and stuff, you can drop the odd, what am I trying to say, swear word, god, f word, whatever. I try not to at all though, right? But I think when you're with your seniors, when you're with your parents, do you swear? No. So no. Are you gonna accidentally do it on TV? It doesn't happen accidentally.
It doesn't happen. The only reason why I think we even perhaps sometimes think about that is because of the culture that we have created with ourselves in that studio. Everybody, whenever in that studio, acts like, or is, family. Everybody's really close with one another. Everyone's really tight. And when you're with your friends and when you're with your family, and with people you're close to, you tend to, just be relaxed. And when you're relaxed, then sometimes words come out that shouldn't, perhaps, right? So that's the only thing I can think of as to why we think about those things sometimes. But no, we have a very professional show.
I think, Raja, especially like putting even like the seriousness of our show aside, just the fact that we're able to come in every weekend covering the sport that we love, being around people that, we can have that sort of comfortability with, it just speaks to like how much Punjabi is really growing, like not only are we able to cover the sport in the language and represent ourselves, but we're able to have fun at the studio as well. That just sort of speaks to the vibe of our studio as well. Yeah.
And, it's been like that ever since I walked into this show, right? When I walked in on 7 years ago. That starts from Bhupinder and Nathan, the culture that they set, the culture that, Randeep has helped carry forward, and Harp and Mantad being the two voices of the show that you hear most often on our broadcasts. Like, everybody is tight knit with one another, but everybody is also very passionate about the show. And, sometimes we don't always agree, because when you're passionate about things, you might have different ways to go about it, but everyone respects each other's opinion, and everybody at the end of the day has the same goal of, progressing and moving this show forward. And that's what I think gives us such a great vibe, is everybody cares about each other deeply, but they also care about the well-being of the show.
Wanted to give a quick breaking news here. The Canucks have made it 8-0.
I was gonna give that update too. When it was 7-0,
Wow.
I wasn't gonna say touchdown. I was gonna say converted. They're up by a converted touchdown, and now they're up by a 2-point converted touchdown.
Wow. Plan the parade, eh?
Yeah, and ਜਿਹੜੇ Monday Night Football ਦੇ ਸ਼ੌਕੀਨ ਨੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਪਿਟਸਬਰਗ ਸਟੀਲਰਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੋਮ ਮੈਦਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਤ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਟੈਨਸੀ ਟਾਈਟਨਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ. I think we're getting a little carried away here. Raja, you probably got to kick it here soon, eh?
You know what? My battery is about to die.
Okay. You know what we're going to do? We're going to have you on again. We're going to have you co-host every once in a while. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਹੈ podcast.
ਜੀ.
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? So you're still on the board of directors. ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈਗਾ, ownership document ਸਾਰਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈਗਾ.
ਹਲੇ ਮੈਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਵੇਚਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਲੇ.
ਤੇਰਾ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਿਆ ਇੱਥੇ. ਤੇ it's yours for whenever.
Stock is going up, brother. Stock is going up on this show.
Yeah. Okay, so Thursday night, thanks for being with us. Anything you want to say before we peace out?
No, man, just thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate what you guys are doing to, help carry this show forward, but also the work that, we all do together on HNIC Punjabi. Very talented producer, Jagraj, and very talented host and podcaster, Harpreet Pandey. So thank you so much for having me, man. Appreciate it. It was very fun talking to you guys. Especially in a little bit of a different, like galla bata da roj karde hain, but doing it in this way is a little bit different. So it was very fun.
Thanks, Raja.